Cyberstrictive is the debut full-length album from APOGEAN. APOGEAN? APOGEAN. It's a technical death metal band from Toronto, Ontario, in Canada, and a band that is, I would say, more of a progressive metal band overall. If we call them technical, we kind of get this sharp-edged idea of what they should be, and really this is much more of a progressive death metal band who are more prone to something closer to Fallujah or the mid-period of the Faceless, and they're on the fellow from Inferi's label, so you can imagine their sound has a little bit of strong melody to it. There's a very impressive technique from every musician, and overall, this band kind of came up in an area that's better known for its deathcore at the moment. Overall, we're getting a very modern progressive death metal album out of this band for their debut. So why am I talking about it? Because that's not generally my favorite thing. I think it's because this is something different. It's something kind of unique, and while at the same time it's a little bit kind of run of the mill in other aspects of it. And I'll explain the difference between what's run of the mill and what's industry standard after I just we'll listen to a clip and see if you're even interested in that conversation. This is a band that knows exactly what they're doing in terms of promoting themselves and putting their music out there, reaching a professional standard, and getting out there and doing it. And I think that's something to be celebrated because there's so many folks who are so talented who just kind of stupidly fumble out their music and don't promote it, don't put money behind it, and I just hope that the universe will give back to them. And I like that this is kind of a go-getter, get out there and do it kind of band, and you can kind of see that in their music because they put a lot of time and effort into these songs, which are definitely very detailed, very technical, and certainly diabolic undertakings in terms of performance, but they're still musical. They're still experiential in the fact that they're presenting progressive death metal of a certain type that is very modern to a very high professional standard, but also they get a little weird with it. There's a little bit of a video gamey touch to some of the interludes and movement in terms of the synths and keyboards that they throw in there, and it feels like they've designed this to be something that is repeatable. And that doesn't mean that anyone's song stands out right away, that most of them feel very dense, and a lot of them are kind of have clangorous, simpler grooves to them at on a surface level, but there's a lot of detail here in terms of what you find on repeat listens. And there's another band on the Artisan era, the Inanimate Existence, who are kind of the same way for me. They're doing something modern that is very familiar, and it's in a niche, but they kind of go and explore it all the way throughout, and they sort of find their own groove inside of that. And I think that it's helped this band to get they've onboarded the former vocalist for Crosis into this group. And I wasn't a big fan of Crosis, but I like that this guy has a broad range to his voice. He kind of does like a little bit of the cattle decapitation range, a little bit of the goblin stuff in there too, not exactly, but his own style of it. And it works in terms of showing a broad oeuvre and doing a lot with each song, so they all sound related to one another, but each one has their own thing to say, their own scene to set, and they do it pretty well. Now, in general, if you're just looking for traditional progressive death metal or technical death metal, this is just straightforward enough to not sound like deathcore, and it shouldn't sound too trendy or whatever you want to call that. However, time is relative, but it's definitely more straightforward than a lot of the other options out there in terms of presenting thrashing rhythms, death metal rhythms that are certainly not old school in any sense, and might have more to do with like a Meshuggah than they do, Deicide or whatever. But overall, we do get a strong extreme metal album here, and one that really wants to be a progressive metal record. And I appreciated that because there's a lot of constant refrains and twists and turns taken that show us that they're quite a good set of progressive metal musicians otherwise. So for me, there was a lot there was a lot feeding into my brain when I was listening to this, and I appreciated not only how busy it was, but how well it breathed and sold its ideas over time. Now, I didn't necessarily get the lyrics entirely. I don't know how long this will last in my playlist, but overall, I think this is very much an above average death metal record, progressive metal record for sure. And if you're a fan of that thing, I think it'll be readily apparent what makes this kind of special, but also kind of like I said, industry standard. It's not necessarily generic, but you'll feel like there's that bar, and it's a very obvious bar for bands that are popular, and they've gone for it. So if that's to your taste and you're interested in something modern, I think this is a pretty interesting choice. Check it out for yourself when it releases on March 8th in about 1 week. And for now, there's some preview songs on the site you can check out, and you can read the review right there too.